Night launches. This is a story about launching rockets at night. Space is dark enough as it is, but this is a reality of any outer planetary intercept orbit. We need every bit of orbital energy we can get to make the intercept, and our optimum launch must be at night to take advantage of the planet's rotation. We'll be pulling out all the stops. To paraphrase a character from a popular sci-fi series, we're trying to shoot a bullet with a smaller bullet while riding a horse blindfolded. And to make matters worse, it's one of those mechanical horses outside of a disappointing grocery store. Okay, maybe that's taking the metaphor a bit far, but only just. A broken old Winnebago would be only one step up in luxury from the creature comforts in play here. We are, after all, trying to visit another planet for the price of an expensive television. We must temper our expectations accordingly. So, how do we chart a course to another planetary system for less than the price of a motorcycle? We're about to find out. At first, it seemed like just a matter of using a few big parts to push a bunch of cheaper parts into orbit. And then, with enough delta V, Bob's your uncle. Certainly, given we could make the intercept for only 3 parts, it should be simple, right? Well, far from it. At the low end of the budget, we've already stripped out all of the costly items. We've even decided to use the baguette fuel tanks. They cost 30% less than Oscar tanks, and they carry twice the fuel. These sorts of nuanced details will make or break the design. At first, attempts were made using higher cost components. A successful attempt was made at around 20,000. Lessons from these few attempts led to a dramatic reduction in subsequent attempt costs. Just 10 or so attempts later, we proved we could do it for 12,000. But could we push it further? Could we cross the 10,000 threshold? After considerable assessment and, let's say, learning through failure, a viable design emerged as a possible contender. This design would be tested over dozens of tedious attempts, ultimately culminating in one glorious triumph. Now, we'll review this mission in detail. We start off with the only 2 SRBs we have capable of achieving orbit under 5,000. Along with the decouplers, we're already approaching 4,000 just to get to orbit. Fortunately, the Mark I command pod and a boatload of baguettes are super cheap. So we slap on a few extra Oscar tanks to have somewhere to mount the baguettes. We're using 12 of those in 2 groups of 6. One is ejected in low Kerbal orbit as we're making our burn to Joule intercept, leaving the vessel on an elliptical solar orbit with a Joule intercept and about 1,200 meters per second of remaining delta V. Our primary burn left us with the Joule periapsis far outside the center of the system. It's very difficult to control the final orbital parameters from low Kerbal orbit. I'm impressed we managed to intercept at all. We will need to coordinate several maneuvers to capture into a Laythe orbit, and we'll need most of the remaining fuel to do it. This attempt used a maneuver node about 100 days before the Joule encounter, where we burn about 50 meters per second to align the destination orbit with the ecliptic plane to improve our chances of a Tylo encounter. We will use Tylo's gravity to plan a strategic burn, bringing our orbital energy down and leaving the vessel on a low elliptical orbit of Joule, where we can make small adjustments to coordinate a Laythe intercept. Our maneuver used up over 700 meters per second of delta V, and we'll need about 400 more in addition to the aerobraking, or we'll bounce off Laythe's atmosphere and wait forever, hoping for another favorable encounter. Or worse, Laythe's gravity may drag our Joule periapsis too low, leaving us to face the Kraken. During the final approach planning, the math showed insufficient fuel to capture completely in Laythe aerobraking orbit. This required a slightly lower altitude to sap more energy, which means higher heating. Coming in a little below 2 kilometers per second, this was cutting it super close. The first pass was at 45 kilometers and maxed out the critical temperature at, nice warm 90%. There's a little room for error, but not much. In the future, we refer to this as aerobraking. After surviving the first pass, we have enough fuel to drop the vessel into an elliptical aerobraking orbit, which we can be sure no longer involves errors. It's important to make a tiny adjustment to raise the periapsis just a touch. It slipped dangerously low during the first pass, and after all this hard work, no one wants to explode. Now, with the 250-ish meters per second remaining delta V, the pilot considered a powered water landing, but decided to go with the original plan of a Soviet-style parachute landing. The good news is we remembered to pack the EVA chute. The better news is it deployed as intended. Oh, and I hope the pilot likes swimming in low gravity. We didn't pack equipment for the return trip. It's too expensive. So, might as well enjoy the view.